Hello and welcome to a special edition of Go Ballistic. Now, it might be a normal Monday, but it certainly isn't at Rangers because, as they seem to be at this time of year, they're looking for a new manager once again. And as you can see, we've got the big guns in with us. Not actually who I'm more surprised
I have to sign him into his work.
I was going to say,
I've been in here more than often than him recently.
It's my worst strike partner in history, has to be telling.
Not sure who I'm more surprised to see in the day, so it's great to see both of you in at the one time. But anyway, let's get to it. Last night, 9:40 PM, Rangers confirming that Russell Martin was out of a job. Just 4 months, 123 days into what you have to say was a dismal reign. Boydie, going back to when he was appointed, you at the time thought it was a good appointment, so quite simply, what on earth has gone wrong?
Well, first of all, I did because I think from a number of Rangers fans, and there was a lack of identity from the football club on the pitch, and I felt as if when you look at Russell Martin, albeit it's the MK Dons, it's Swansea, it's Southampton, nothing prepares you for Glasgow, nothing prepares you for what Glasgow brings if you're not winning. And I feel as if that's where Russell has struggled to deal with that. Personally, at the time, I thought it would have been a decent appointment, but he'd obviously that little spell at Rangers for a few months where you kind of get the feeling that he might have understood the football club. But I think as times went on, I don't know what you think, Robert, but I think as times went on, we've seen a total different Russell Martin, someone who probably looked as if it was the pressure had got to him in the end up. And ultimately, Jonathon, when you're not winning games of football, I mean, what was it, 17 games in charge of Rangers? And it's not been good enough, has it, in terms of the wins?
Yeah, absolutely. Listening to what Kris just said there, I think I echo what Kris said. Actually, when Russell Martin was appointed, we broke the story that Russell Martin was going to get the job. Way back, mentioned he was the front runner way back when Philip Clement was sacked. They took a number of months to get that contract over the line and discussions over the line. But at the time, I agreed with Kris. I thought there was enough in his appointment to suggest that it would be a positive appointment. But I don't know if he underestimated the size of the job. From his perspective, I don't think the fact that the Rangers fans initially wanted him in the job helped at all. I don't think there's any getting away from that fact. That said, that's not the reason why he was sacked. The reason why he was sacked because performances and results, more than anything, results weren't good enough. And it reached the stage where I don't think there was any other option. I mean, Andrew Cavenagh, in the hierarchy at the club, they gave him every chance. I mean, we've been sitting here for a number of weeks now, thinking that it was going to get to the stage where he was going to get sacked, and I think they were really resistant to that. They were desperately trying not to react to the fan pressure. But Kris knows Rangers better than I do. But we've seen it down the years. It's a football club where winning's everything. And albeit the club hasn't had the success it maybe feels it should have had in recent times. But as Kris said, the performances, the results, they just weren't.
I think you touched on their performances. I think if you could see improvement, then there would maybe have been a little bit of leeway to keep him there. But it's been getting worse. I mean, there's no getting away from it. The performances have been getting worse.
Well, you touched on it yesterday when you're sitting in the Sky studio, Boydie, that the way he's talking about games, the way he was talking about games post-match, it wasn't really what we were saying.
No, I think everybody can see that.
As pundits, as fans, and I don't think that necessarily helped him.
No, I think that the Jekyll and Hyde of Russell Martin's post-match interviews was something that he has to, if he's going back into management, which I expect him to do, he has to reflect on this period. And, as you say, they're trying to convince fans, maybe try to convince some of the players that he had probably had a pop at previous weeks ago, that it was starting to improve when it wasn't. I think maybe try to convince himself in the end up that performances were getting better, because, I mean, there's no way that because within Russell saying that, performances, they were on the front foot, or trying to create opportunities, we're doing this, he was still saying we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to improve on the pitch. We need to get back on the training field. So I don't think he quite believed it himself, but had to be seen to be putting a positive spin on it, because everything right now around the football club is negative. But a lot of that came from, and by the way, I'll go back to even the Motherwell game where he outed a few players, which at the time I thought, yeah, fair play to you. because I think there's been a lot of Rangers managers over the the recent times that have stood by and allowed Rangers players to control it. So to out them and have a go, but he then went back to them like 2 or 3 weeks after it, and or 2 or 3 games after it, and you're either going to have to stand strong, deal with it, or move them on. The whole Nico Raskin scenario as well, chuck that in the mix. But you can go round the houses, you can sit here and argue till the cows come home. The reality is, it comes down to getting results.
Yeah, but talk to me a wee bit about that, though, Boydie, because listen, we all know that managers carry the can. I wrote it this morning that clubs don't sack 30 players.
No.
They sack managers
Yeah.
because of results. But at the same time, for me, these Rangers players have done nowhere near enough for a manager from day one.
No, I don't think it can always be the manager's fault. I don't think it can be. There's a lot of players, and I think when managers leave and they'll reflect, and that's why in terms of the football community, you always say it's a small community, because managers will speak to other managers if they're looking at players. There is no doubt that there'll be concerns over a lot of Rangers players. I think the biggest thing for me, though, Robert, would be that there is no doubt, and I think we said this a few weeks ago as well in a column, that there is no doubt, to get to Rangers, or Celtic for that matter, you have to be a good player. You don't play professional football if you're not a good player. Some attributes might be better than others, but you're not a bad player. Yeah. But there's one thing when you come to Scotland, and especially Glasgow, your character is questioned more than any other attribute. You've got to be able to deal with the pressure. You've got to be able to deal with everything that's getting thrown your way, and especially when times are tough. Right now, I don't see a lot of Rangers players being able to deal with it. Celtic, on the other hand, yeah, they're winning games of football, so it's not getting questioned as much. But for Rangers, you can't. I think when you're signing players and you're going through it, what box to tick, I don't think that many of them fail in many attributes that you can see with your eyes. But the one thing you can't is what is that character? What can you deal with it? Can you deal with pressure? Can you deal with the demands of playing with a huge football club? And I think Rangers, over a period of time, have went to a market in the English Championship, League One, that they do struggle to deal with it. They do. And you might think that even some of the clubs that have came from a big club, but there's nothing like Glasgow. Nothing. Especially when you're not winning.
Yeah.
Do you think whoever comes in, just sticking with the players, has a challenge in the sense that Russell Martin obviously has been trying to imprint, obviously it didn't really translate, but a very specific style of play, this philosophy that he talked about and stuff as well. Will Still at Southampton kind of talked about that, trying to get that out of the players also in a longer period. Do you think whoever comes in to replace him maybe faces a challenge in getting that out of these players? Or has this decision happened early enough that it maybe isn't imprinted so much?
I think it will depend on the next character of the next manager. I think that was possibly part of the problem in terms of Russell Martin's personality, his character with the players. It wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape or form that if whoever comes into Rangers next gets a reaction out of these players. That's what happens. Players who are not necessarily playing for one manager, and you could probably name a handful of Rangers right now who weren't playing for the manager, will suddenly, like that, you'll see a different side to them. And that's the thing that I think would be galling if you're Russell Martin or any manager who loses a job. It happens time and time again. Players who, for whatever reason, just aren't given a lot. And I think that was evident yesterday, especially at Falkirk. Players who weren't given a lot. And maybe by that point, I mean, there was a bit of chat yesterday morning, even before the game, that Russell Martin's time was up. Regardless of what was going to happen at Falkirk, that this international break was going to spell the end for him. I wonder if that filtered through to the players. That performance for me yesterday at Falkirk was abject. For a team who are allegedly fighting for the manager. They said all the right things, one by one, before and after every game. I've covered Rangers now for weeks in the European game, league games. They all said the same thing, one after one. We're playing for the manager, we believe in the manager. They didn't show it. Now, ultimately, as we said at the start, it comes down to the manager. And I say, I don't think Russell Martin, by any stretch, covered himself in any glory. The complete opposite's true. That said, I think there are some players there who should really be looking at themselves in the mirror, because I guarantee it, whoever comes in next, whether it's a short-term, part-time, temporary appointment or a full-time appointment, you will see a different side to these players.
I think on that as well, that's what we've seen, and that would be the worrying thing for Russell Martin. I said that yesterday as well, that the previous managers have been able to get a tune out of players straight away, and Russell hasn't.
Yeah.
So you're now looking at it saying that for a period there, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came in, got a tune right out of them, Michael Beale got a tune out of them, and Philip Clement got a tune out of them. You then, for whatever reason, it's not worked. As when you look at the overhaul of players in the summer, listen, we'll question the character of them, but you look at, I don't quite get that. A lot of them don't understand what it means to so many people in Scotland. As an institution, there is no doubt about it that it's not just a normal football club. The pressures that you have to win every single... Players need to realise that what they're representing. And right now, a lot of them are struggling to deal with it. I mean, the shirt weighs too heavy on their shoulders.
That's right. I think you're bang on, Kris, because we spoke to Joe Rothwell after the game yesterday. There'll be footage out this afternoon, albeit the interview took place before Russell Martin was sacked, obviously. And one of the things he spoke about was before he came to Rangers, some people were telling him what a great club it is. The expectation level is fantastic, the rewards are fantastic, what a great environment. But the flip side was, in his words, other people are saying, it's a tough environment. Exactly the same situation. It's demanding it. All the same things that would make it a great club are the things that make it a difficult club. And I don't think so many of the players who have come in have been able to handle that. I think they've underestimated that. They think Rangers, they think Scottish football, they think Rangers are going to dominate most games. Games are tough. Boyd will tell you more than anyone. When teams like Rangers go to St Mirren, to Motherwell, to Kilmarnock, to Falkirk, you've got guys who are busting their gut to get a win against Rangers and Celtic as well. It's not easy, and I think there's maybe players underestimate the size of that job. Guys like Joe Rothwell think, I've played X amount of games in the English Championship, I can cope with that. It's night and day from the English Championship. I'm not saying that English Championship players can't do that. There's history has shown that they have done down the years, but as Boydie says, it's a character thing. And it's, in fairness to Rangers in any club, that's a very hard thing to gauge before you sign a player. It's almost, you almost don't see it. You'll have been in Rangers, Boydie, when guys have signed for the club, you think, that's a good player. And he walks in the dressing room and he shrinks because of the size of the club.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying though, but I think there was characters in there that you can jump on board with them. I think it's the opposite now. Even if you bring one or two characters in there, I look at what's in the dressing room right now, and I'm no sure that the DNA of the football club is there. I mean, I touched on it yesterday and I said that if you take Celtic, for example, there's probably about 5 or 6 players in that Celtic squad right now, whether they have an unbelievable season, good, or an unbelievable bad season, they're still going to be at Celtic next year. That DNA is imprinted all the way through.
How do Rangers get that back then? Well, that doesn't happen overnight.
I think, and we've touched on it loads of times, you go back to the snobbery towards Scottish players, and I think that has been evident for Rangers or players within the league. I feel strongly on that, because if you go back through a number of Rangers teams, and a lot of people will say that Dick Advocaat's Rangers team were, the best team that they've seen. I mean, I know the 9 in a row team, but some of the football that Dick Advocaat team played, there was still Scottish-based players in it, and he could have went and got anybody in world football. There was still Scottish-based players. So I think that you have to have that DNA. You have to have people that understand what it means to people to play with Rangers. Listen, there might have been players there right now that have played a lot of games for Rangers, but you're still thinking, do you really understand what it means? And I'm afraid to say, I think with what was available last summer. When you think of the free contracts, when you think of players... Lorishank was the obvious one. But, we've spoken about Russell Martin, we've spoken about, the players. I think the Rangers hierarchy are going to come under severe pressure now as well. We've seen it during the week. Listen, it's scenes that we don't want to see. Even the bus and everything, you don't agree, you can't condone that. But fans have had enough, they're fed up. And you look at what's going to happen now, everything's going to be questioned. Everything. There is no doubt that Russell Martin has played a big part in bringing a lot of these players to the football club over the last few months. But I think so is Kevin Thilwell, because he was obviously part of the Everton when Chermiti arrived. You would imagine that having spent the money that Rangers have spent on him, what, £8-9 million? I'm sorry though, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are. If you're spending that type of money, he needs to come here and rip the league up. It's not a project. You can't. Rangers have tried to get players in. Yeah, they might. I think Kasama, they might be able to, brought in for lower. They might be able to move him from. But I don't see any other ones in there where you're saying, you're onto something there. You brought him in. He's going to do well, and you move him on for money. I don't see that being the case right now. And I can't sit here and criticise the last 2-3 header recruitments. and say that their recruitment was really bad, and it was poor, and then, you know, not mention what's going on right now, because you could argue that for what's been spent and the type of player, character that's been brought into the building, it's not been good enough.
That's the thing, Boyd. I mean, there was an assumption that the Rangers recruitment would improve because of where it was before, and it hasn't done.
No.
You know, it's arguably get worse. You say there are real question marks over the players who have come in. The story last week that Kevin Thelwell's son's going to be the next head of recruitment. Again,
Talk about timing,
optics, how that looks. It staggers me that appointment's been allowed to be rubber stamped. I don't think they have actually.
Listen, he might be unbelievable. He might well be. But it's timing and you know, the connection.
I don't think that helped the situation at all. But you're right. If you're a Rangers fan right now, you are questioning these decisions. You are questioning where things are going, because, as I say, there was an assumption that things were going to improve overnight. The Rangers takeover brought so much positivity to the club, and that's only a number of months ago. In the back of that, they appointed a new manager. They made a number of changes behind the scenes. There was so much positivity. Where is that now? It's gone. I think Andrew Cavenagh and the guys in charge at Rangers have to come out and talk about what's happening here. They made a statement last night when Russell Martin was sacked, a very quick, short statement. Understandably so. It was 20 to 10 at night. Presumably they just made a decision, so they got it out there that the decision was made. I think they have to come out very clearly and explain to the Rangers fans where things are at. Andrew Cavenagh has had nothing but positivity, as I say, since he's been appointed as chairman, since his takeover was completed. He's an absent landlord. He turns up every other week here and there for European games, for bigger games, comes in, away he goes. Don't hear from
Which
him.
is not uncommon in football, I might add. But in a moment of crisis, you need to speak.
The figurehead has to be seen as a figurehead, Boydie.
Yeah.
You're right, it's not uncommon. It happens more often than not. Yeah. But at this situation, Andrew Cavenagh has to be seen and heard.
Remember as well, at the very start of this, when Andrew Cavenagh and Parag Maratta were addressing the fans, they both said that if they needed to speak, they would speak. Yeah. And yet, as you're saying, Robert, in the midst of this crisis, neither of them have put their head above the parapet. That has to change.
That has to change, and I think it has to change soon. As I say, if you're a Rangers fan right now, you need to be told what's going on. There will be celebration within the Rangers support that Russell Martin's gone, because they were very loud and clear in what they wanted to happen, and it's happened. So that will maybe pacify them for a short period of time. There's an international break now. Rangers don't play another game for over a week. So I think that's been part of the reason why it's been done now. But yeah, Andrew Cavenagh, I think, has to get back to Glasgow. I think he has to be seen at Ibrox, and I think he has to speak on this situation. It'll be very interesting. We'll come to this maybe next, Jonathon. It'll be very interesting to see what Rangers do next in terms of the managerial appointment, whether it's a short-term attempted fix or whether it's whether they've got someone lined up. I don't think they have got someone lined up. At the minute, I think they will be maybe scrambling's not the right word, but I'll be fascinated to see what they do next, because they took a long time to appoint Russell Martin. We broke the story, as I said, the day that Philip Clement was sacked, that Russell Martin was top of the list. A number of months went by. They spoke to so many people. They interviewed Russell Martin, I think, over a handful of times before he finally got the job. They didn't.
What do you make of that, though?
They didn't do things quickly. Boyd, is the point I'm making, you know. And I don't think.
Do you think they were convinced?
I don't know if they were. I think they wanted to tick all the boxes in their mind. I think they wanted to feel as though they had looked under every stone to make sure that this guy was the right guy. And for whatever reason, they did think he was the right guy. But as I say to you, he was the guy. I wrote the story the day that Philip Clement was sacked, that he was the guy who was at the forefront of things. Yet it took months. They spoke to a handful of people. And it got to the point where, they went back and they gave Russell Martin the job. Again, both Boydie and I thought there was real merit in that at the time. I could understand the scepticism from a lot of folk. That was obvious. His pedigree, did he have the minerals to be the Rangers manager? But I thought he had a philosophy that was going to allow him to imprint that in Rangers, which would be beneficial to the club. He wasn't able to do it. I think there was a perfect storm with everything that was going on. The fans didn't want him. The players, I think, were sceptical. I don't think the players who were brought in were good enough. You had guys sitting on the bench who was trying to go on the pitch who didn't want to play. I mean, that in itself was staggering. Another guy in a Belgian international causing him problems, rightly or wrongly. I think there was issues on both sides, not nailing it on in Nico Raskin, but there was an issue there that didn't help the situation. I think there was a perfect storm there. But the point I'm making is they took so long to appoint Russell Martin. I don't think they will be of a mind to do something quickly. I think this situation they were desperately trying to avoid.
But the other thing on that as well, when you the fact that it's taken so long the last time, I always think as soon as you've got that manager in the door, you need to start looking for your next one.
Yeah,
you do. You need to have that template there.
That's easier said than done, nobody, because things change. The guy that you,
I bet you, if you look for a manager in June and you think he could be the next Rangers manager, things change. Guys who are in your kind of 100%. That's why you've always, as soon as somebody's appointed, for me, there should always be 3 or 4. If this person leaves because he's doing really well, okay, we're looking to bring in somebody that's got the same. If he doesn't do well and we have to get rid of him, do we need to look at different managers? Do we need to look at a different character from a manager? You know, does he go experience? Do we continue to bring through youth? So you need to have a list there that you're working to. 5 or 6 managers you're looking, saying, yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on him. That's what the managers are sort of the clubs who, for me, I mean, I know the obvious one would be a Brighton, for example. That's what they'll be doing. They will have 5 or 6 managers lined up for the next one, and the different boxes, the criteria will be ticked. Okay, like this one, if this goes wrong or this goes right. So I think that's what you've got to do. But I think going back to the pitch as well would be the big thing for me. You know, this away record for Rangers in terms of not having clean sheets. And I touched on it yesterday. I know Big Davey kind of found the funny side of it when I mentioned, but it was true. We were shitting goals right, left and centre as well under Paul Le Guen. It was very difficult. The first thing that Walter Smith done when he came back was go and get 2 proper, solid centre-backs that were going to shore up the defence. Ugo Ekiog, obviously sadly no longer with us, and Davy Weir came in, proper defenders, proper leaders, knew exactly what it meant, not only to run a dressing room, but to obviously to look after a dressing room, as I said there, but go on a pitch and do it as well. Because we've seen players that are very good in the dressing room, but as soon as you go on the pitch, they freeze. That wasn't the case with those 2. Straight out there and led by example. Going back to Rangers' last clean sheet away from home is the 8th of December 2024.
10 months ago.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Why would you not rectify that? You know, you've went, and you know you could say, you know, Rangers have obviously brought in defenders, but in terms of that long-term plan, and I know I'm going to contradict myself here because Ugo Ekiog, Davy Weir ended up staying for a long period of time, but Walter knew what he had to do to get through to a period of time. I'm not sure. I mean, you look at the left-back situation. Magoma, for me, was just, right, we need a left-back, get someone in. Cornelius was brought in at the end up there. De Jager was Rangers centre-back. They're all in one.
Yeah.
I mean, where is the continuity to go? James Tavernier, I don't think was... Well, you only need to see the signing of Max Aarons to suggest that I don't think Russell Martin ever had James Tavernier down as staying long term. There was obviously questions of a goalkeeper as well. That would have thrown Jack Butland's future into doubt as well. You've got a John Souttar contract situation. Was that somewhere they were trying to look for there as well? Russell then said it himself yesterday. He's been unfair in Corin Barron. Corin Barron was probably, I don't know, 7th or 8th choice midfielder for Rangers at one point. Now he's saying he's number 1. There's a lot of contradictions in there. There's a lot. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they make a real situation as well. I mean, for me,
Rangers Football Club should never be a first loan for anyone.
Yeah,
shouldn't be. It's a club.
I think that kid has a big future.
Yeah.
I think you have to say that first and foremost. I think he's an 18-year-old boy who's got real talent and potential, but he's out his depth at Rangers right now. You've got Finlay Curtis there at Rangers, you know, who's come through the ranks and who's been arguably the guy who should be champing the door saying, Why am I not playing?
Not even in the squad yesterday.
You know, I don't know if he had an injury or what, but yeah, like again, and it may be unfair to have him playing every single week given his young age, but yeah, as Boydie says, for the first loan for an 18-year-old to be Rangers is, unless you're absolutely exceptional, that's asking a lot, you know. Mm-hmm. And for me, again, and I qualify by saying I think he's got a big future in the game. I really do.
Listen, what's happening right now? Well, it'll be in good stead going forward.
Yeah, that'll 100%. It's a huge learning curve for him, you know.
100%.
But he's been out his depth. He looks like a youth player playing kind of men's football. And I qualify to say I think he'll go far in the game, but I don't think it's been fair on him. And again, there may be other players behind him. Finlay Curtis has been one who are saying, well, why am I sitting in the stand? You know, so Russell Martin, I don't think helped himself in many of the decisions he made. I think ultimately for him as well, I have to say, I think he had to be put out of his misery. I don't think he could have had any enjoyment being Rangers manager for 123 days. I mean, what was his biggest result? You know?
I think obviously
He said one or two.
Panathinaikos, when you look at five victories over what 16, 17 games.
How much enjoyment did he get from managing Rangers? You know,
Yeah,
see a guy that had been out of work. He came in here. He spoke about how he didn't have a particularly great Rangers career as a player. The short spell that he had, he was desperate to win people over. You know, and I'm not saying the Rangers fans made it very clear what they thought of him. And whatever you think of anyone, the guy's a human being. That must have been tough, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
That must have been tough. So I've got a part of my thinking is that I think there'll be a sense of relief. I think that it's over. Nobody's heard from Russell Martin since. He's not made any comment since the decision's been made. But I do wonder if there's a sense of real relief there, that albeit he's the shortest ever permanent appointed manager at Rangers, but I think he'll probably head back to South, and there'll be a real sense of relief that it's now been brought to a close.
Yeah, those scenes at the end yesterday, boy, they just kind of pay into that.
It
wasn't nice to see.
When it gets to the point where a Rangers manager or any manager is leaving a stadium with security guard and police escort, the game's up. You know, the game's up. But at the same time, as much as I say that the criticism was unprecedented from the Rangers fans, when Rangers are scoring a goal and the fans are immediately singing for the manager to go, you can understand the Rangers fans' frustration. You know, you can understand how kind of low they are right now. I think they're a fan base that's absolutely scunnered by what's been happening at their club over a number of years now. They're crying out for success. They're a fan base that sticks by the club. You know, we all know Rangers fans who turn out week in, week out. They did when they were in the lower divisions. They do now. It's not easy for them to decide not to go to games. You know, I was in Sturm Graz last week. It was probably the smallest away support I've seen at a Rangers European game since I've been covering Rangers. You know, there was quite a few empty seats in their section. That won't sit well with Rangers fans. They're proud. They proudly follow their team. So decisions been made. I think probably the right decision in the end for both the club and the man himself. So yeah, but as I say, it'll be fascinating to see what they do next.
Well, I'll ask you about that, Boydie.
Boydie's get the job. Boydie's next. Big sooty hands. Big sooty's got you in the job.
There's one thing, I'll not be taking him with me.
I'll be a number 2.
No.
But this coach?
No, definitely not. That roll sausage this morning.
I noticed you didn't bring me one in.
I know, sorry.
Didn't get me one either.
Didn't get you one.
Didn't get me one, mate. No, I've not had one.
Rolling links he had. I'll show you the text message.
I did witness that, I've got to say. Anyway, on to what's next. Steven Gerrard, Sean Dyche, Danny Rowe, Kevin Muscat, some of the names that are being deemed early favourites by the bookies at least. Derek McInnes' name floating about as well. What do Rangers need? Do any of those names excite you or jump out as an obvious contender to come in and save the club from this situation?
I think the obvious one would be Steven Gerrard because of what he's done in the past. That doesn't guarantee that he's going to come back and be a success second time round. But there's one thing that you can guarantee with Steven Gerrard: the standards around the place would be lifted. That was one thing that was evident from his first spell in charge. I think for Danny Rowe was someone else that was mentioned in the summer, another young-gish manager. Can Rangers afford? I mean, he's experienced enough, and everybody says he's a good man. But it would be a project.
Would it be a bit of a hard sell that coming from the English Championship as well?
100%. And he was one of the ones where I thought in the summer, yeah, okay, but can't go off the back of another younger manager in Russell Martin. Sean Dyche is someone who, would tick a lot of boxes. I'm not sure. I mean, he was obviously, there's been a big connection around Everton recently with Rangers moving as well. I'm not sure what his relationship would be with Kevin Thilwell and other people that's involved. Dan Purdy's obviously come in as well. So, I mean, that one I don't know. But he would definitely be one that you would at least be looking to explore because of what he's done. Who was the other one you mentioned?
Derek McInnes.
Derek McInnes.
Should
No,
Rangers ask the
I
question?
think there was somebody else before that as well.
You've not
I've seen Kevin Muscat. A lot of people.
You're just rhyming off the.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying Kevin Muscat's another one who you're saying that.
Yeah.
He's coming to the end of his time over there, and he's done well, and he's another name that every time the Rangers job comes up. Derek McInnes, for me, you look at what he's went and done in Edinburgh. This whole. Because of Hearts have started well, because they're above Rangers in the league, let's be realistic, there's no comparison between Hearts and Rangers. If Rangers wanted Derek McInnes, they would go and get him. There is no doubt about that.
Do you think they would get? You think they would get him?
I think they would. I don't think Derek McInnes is in any position. He wouldn't be the person. He obviously turned it down the last time. We all know Derek McInnes' background. We all know his connection to the football club. I don't think it's been any great surprise that he grew up a Rangers fan as well. Personally, you can let something go once. I don't think you can do it a second time. If Rangers wanted Derek McInnes, I think they would make it happen. I think they would make it happen. That personally, but do I think it will happen? No.
On Rangers' side,
yeah,
you just don't think they'll.
But what I will say, to add some context to what I'm saying, I just think when you look at Rangers Football Club, whenever they have needed, I know it's different ownerships, but if you go back, whenever there's been that moment of crisis, they've went to an experienced manager, an experienced man that understands the football club. And I know, listen, you can't go and get Walter Smith all the time. Graham Souness, when you go right back, Dick Advocat came in and spent money. Alec McLeish came in. He was a man's man. He understood Scottish football. He understood the size of Rangers and what it meant to so many people. And I think after that, obviously Walter came back, but after that, Rangers have tried to, maybe go down a different route. But there's one thing that always keeps leading you back to, for me right now, Rangers are in crisis mode and need somebody who understands what it means. Whether that is Derek McInnes, I think he ticks a lot of boxes. I really do. He started the season well with Hearts, but this whole notion that Derek McInnes wouldn't leave Hearts to go to Rangers, I don't think that would be the case. You?
No, I tend to agree with you. I do think it would. I'm not saying I don't know whether it would be a difficult choice for him to make, but I think he would have to think about it. I mean, Derek McInnes, as you said, rejected Rangers at one point because of situation behind the scenes that he wasn't sure about. Would that still be the case?
No, do you know, Joe, why I don't think it's changed? Yeah.
Sporting director, there's issues
but they're under pressure now as well, though. They're under pressure now. They have to deliver now.
But managers, boy, stand and fall in their recruitment.
Yeah.
And the recruitment at Rangers now is up for debate. So,
in terms of who's doing it? Or who's making it?
Who's making those decisions, yeah.
So
I think, I do agree with you to a certain extent. I think ultimately if he was offered the job, I'd be very surprised if he rejected it a second time. But that said, Derek's an astute man. I don't think he makes decisions with his heart. Mm-hmm. I think he makes them with his head. I think he's, as much as you say, he's a Rangers man. He's grown up a Rangers man. He obviously played for the club. I don't think that's. I think he makes decisions.
Yeah, and rightly so. I don't think you can let your heart rule your head, but at the same time, he understands the football club. He gets it.
100%. That's what I'm saying.
First and foremost, and more importantly, he understands Scottish football, and I think for a number of years now that has been one of the problems.
Let me put it this way: if I was Rangers, Derek McInnes would be top of the list. Mm. From Rangers' point of view, I think for those reasons, a man who knows the club, he played for the club, he grew up in the west of Scotland.
He knows how to win games of football in Scotland.
He knows how to win trophies and win games of football in Scotland. And I think we're talking about players respecting managers. I think he gets that like that from the moment he walks in the door, because he's got that kind of presence. You know, he worked with Walter Smith. There's a degree of Walter Smith about Derek in many ways. He's not up there. Don't get me wrong in terms of the presence that Walter had, but he's got something similar for me. From a Rangers point of view, he would be top of my list. But I don't think it would be an openly shut case. I could be wrong with that. I think ultimately, if it was presented to him, I think he would take the job. And again, that's just gut feeling. But I don't think it would be a kind of get the car and get me Ibrox. I think he would have a lot of questions.
100%. And rightly so, because you would want to know what's going on. But as I said to you a minute ago, there,
I think
for me, there is people above the manager right now that are under pressure now to deliver.
100%. And I think that's what he would want. He would want to know everything about what was going on behind the scenes there, who made decisions, why decisions were getting made, what was coming down the line, what budgets were coming next, and I think you would have to get that nailed on. I don't think it would be a simple case of, Derek, you want the job? Yeah, when do you want me to start? I don't think that would be the case. But ultimately, I think if you were Rangers, he would be top of my list, 100%, for the reasons we discussed. But then
who else interests you? I know I've spoken about them there, but I mean, you can build a case for a number of managers.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it can be somebody. I don't think it can be somebody young. Again,
I'm with you on that.
I don't think it can be. I don't want to sound ageist, but I think it has to be someone with a real degree of experience. As you mentioned, the guys that have come in previously when situations have been kind of difficult, they know what they're about. They really know what they're about.
And I think even you could include Philip Clement in that as well. I think when he first arrived, there was a presence about Philip Clement that the players were a bit whoa, and then all of a sudden, I think you could probably go back to the Motherwell game that the Rangers lost at Ibrox, and I think that's when the whole Philip Clement era changed as well. I felt as if he felt the pressure of Glasgow. He felt the demands and everything that comes with the Rangers manager having. I mean, I think it's fair to say throwing that league away. Yeah, I mean, I think they had it within their grasp, and he really struggled to get back there again. But Philip Clement was that empowering man. I thought, he did speak well at the start. Towards the end, listen, I mean, it was a caricature of himself. But
that's what happens to them all at the end. These guys shrink when they get to the point where they're fighting for their job and they're getting questioned week after week about their future. It can't be easy,
No,
it really can't be easy. And you say Philip Clement, a big imposing figure. By the end of it, he was a shell, and that happens. That happens all the time. Gio, a guy we all loved as a player, new Rangers, arguably.
I thought that was
bullet before they should have done.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But listen, I mean, that's all in the past. I think Rangers now need to just go and find someone who, first and foremost. And I'm not saying, there's been a lot made out of Russell Martin's attire, and what he's not wore.
He's got to wear a suit.
Listen, but you need to, when you're not winning games, things like that just they don't help. I mean, they don't help.
You're not going to mention his hair, are you?
No, definitely not. He's more than me. But there is no doubt that Rangers need to find a proper football manager, a man, somebody that can deal with, one, the pressures, the demands of the football club, the fans, but also commands respect in the dressing room. And I think that's something where, I'm not saying that you have to command respect from everybody, because there'll always be players with different agendas that, they maybe come to the end, they're going to move on. You're not looking at, I need to get rid of this one, I need to get somebody else in that position. So it's very difficult to keep a whole dressing room. But what you need to do is keep the majority of them, and especially the ones who have a voice. And looking at it, I mean, you might correct me here, I don't really look back at Derek McInnes and think you had an issue. He's not had an issue anywhere with players.
No.
I think he's commanded respect. Steven
100%.
Gerrard, the exact same as well. There was, he's
100%.
And I think that's the standards of the place.
Yeah, these guys have a presence with them. As soon as Steven Gerrard walks into a dressing room, regardless of his tactics and his team, people sit down and shut up, presumably, because it's Steven Gerrard. There's an immediate respect there. I think Derek McInnes has got the same thing. Not because of the top player he was, because he wasn't a Steven Gerrard in terms of his player, but he's earned the respect by the way he treats people. And that's something the managers only get over time. And Steven Gerrard has now got a degree of experience under his belt since Rangers. I'd be surprised if he came back right now. I don't know. I could be wrong with that. I just get the impression that, again, he's someone they spoke to the last time. It's not so long ago, a few months ago, and he pulled himself out of the run for it then. What's changed? I wonder if it's maybe again the time is not right for him, and I'm not necessarily sure that Rangers going back to Steven Gerrard would be the decision anyway.
I know.
In all honesty, but I think they have to look forward. But do they make a short-term appointment?
But who would that be though?
Well, they made a Barry Ferguson appointment.
Do you think he could go back there?
But Barry's sitting by the phone, you think, waiting for it to ring?
Do you think he could go back there?
I mean, I actually don't think Barry would take it in a short term.
No, and
neither he should.
No.
I think if they were to even consider Barry Ferguson, I think he would have the same questions probably that Derek McInnes would have in terms of what.
Yeah, and also he's fresh in his mind of, you know, you deemed me not to be good enough a few months ago. Listen, I don't think...
Albeit, by the way, I thought Barry Ferguson, when he went in there with Neil McCann and Billy Dodds, I think the three of them did a really good job, but it wasn't faultless. You know, there was issues there behind the scenes that they had to navigate as well, which were really difficult for them. But I thought they did a really, really good job.
But that's falling back into the category of the managers keep getting the blame of it. There's something.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it is, and I don't even think players within Ibrox, within the training centre, can put their finger on it right now, or it would have been fixed. There's issues somewhere along the line.
Have you got too much influence? Have you got guys in there? You tell me, if you get guys in there, you know dressing rooms better than any of us, Boydie. You worked from the Paul Le Guen era when you and others weren't having him, right? Do players? And I'm not saying that's what happened at that point, but the players have too much of an influence. Do they have they get too much of a say?
They can smell fear. They can smell, you know, I've spoken about this before and plenty of times, you know, like, Paul Le Guen didn't understand Rangers Football Club. Going back to what we're saying right now, like us going away to games and grounds that we played at and getting praised for coming away with a draw, that doesn't happen. You'd have to win.
Yeah.
You have to win. And you need to understand that as quick as you possibly can. And we had, you know, there was maybe 5 or 6 that didn't understand that within the club. But we also had about 15, 16 that did. You know, and I mean, I know myself and Barry were the ones who, you know, were supposedly at the forefront of it. There was other people in there that were questioning what is actually going on here. I mean, the fact that, you know, we went into training one day and our best player's leaving with a black bin bag with his boots in it and told to go, it's not right. That doesn't happen. That just does not happen. You know, you have to find a way to manage the situation to get the best out of players. And for me, you know, going back to it, you know, personally, I felt as if Paul Le Guen was looking for a road out. That's exactly what happened when I think it got to Sir David Murray. But you've got to give him credit. He realised that he tried to change the culture within the club. It was never going to get changed overnight. The results, once again, weren't good enough. Had to go. Went back to Walter Smith.
Yeah.
Somebody that understood it, somebody that got the football club. And that's what we're saying right now. There is no doubt that Rangers went through this. Listen, it's different times, it's different boards, it's different owner, whatever way you want to look at it. But there's one thing that will never change, or a few things that will never change, is Rangers Football Club have to win. And the fans demand you win. That will never change. And that's what Rangers need to get back to. They need to find somebody that's going to embrace those two things especially, and then you can make see this club flourish again. Because I look at it, and people within the club might say it's not been the case, but there's probably been an acceptance of second best. You know, Celtic have got more money now, Celtic have, you know, and that just can't be the case. You have to fight every single day to strive to get to that level again. There is no doubt Rangers can get there again. It's going to be difficult. But you can't keep just accepting that, Celtic have got more money as we can't compete. Because right now, and I'll say it even right now, I think this is the best opportunity for anybody to go and win that league. We've seen it again yesterday with Celtic. They managed to win the game. They've found a way to win it. They weren't convincing. I mean, Hearts are sitting at the top of the table right now. Would you rule Rangers out if they get somebody in? I don't think the league's over by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be difficult. Celtic will probably get better as well, but they've got their own issues. Hearts, can they maintain it? There's a lot of question marks around a lot of teams. So the season is not dead and buried. I mean, at one point yesterday, I know it's all ifs and buts, but at one point yesterday, Rangers were 4 points behind Celtic, and Rangers are in crisis mode.
Yeah, but as you said, but Celtic won.
Yeah, they found a way. They found a way, and what is it, 9 points now? But I personally don't think the league is over. I mean, I think there's still a number of teams. You know, Hearts are in there as well. We've seen it with Aberdeen last year. I think even at the start of the season, you know, even myself, I felt quite bullish about Rangers will definitely finish second, and that, you know, Aberdeen blew up. I don't think that will happen with Hearts. I really don't. But there is no doubt. I mean, Aberdeen got a terrific result yesterday as well. They're going to improve. They'll start taking points off teams. You would imagine. If not, you know, there's going to be a change there, and they've got some decent players. Hibs are always you know, they can always take points off somebody because of the talent they've got as well. You look at, and I know we're going through the league now as well, but Dundee United can cause teams problems, Kilmarnock can cause teams problems, St Mirren can cause teams problems. You know, every single one of them's caused Rangers problems right now. But they can cause teams problems, and as I said, it might be one of those seasons where, you know, you go back to years ago where there's actually a lot of other teams taking points off everyone else. Yeah. So if you can put that run or get that run of consistency, you can start to climb the table and ask questions of one above you.
Yeah, well, it's certainly interesting to see what Rangers do next. There's no doubt about that. As you say, you have guys like Barry Ferguson and Neil and Reid Odsey sitting hoping that they get a call, and they could do a lot worse. I think.
I just can't see you getting back to that after.
I'd be very, very surprised, but I genuinely think they could do a lot worse. You know, and guys that know the club, and I said at the time I was actually really disappointed for Barry and in Barry that he didn't get his mojo back after that gig and actually get back into football. I think he's wasted sitting in a TV studio or a radio studio. It's only Bams like you that sitting radio.
Oh, you could say sensible ones.
Well, but I think he did a good enough job, albeit it wasn't faultless, that showed that his experience should be put to use in a football field, in a training pitch. The same with Neil McCann and Billy Dodds, who are, by all accounts, fantastic coaches. You know, I think they showed that in their time there. Again, there was issues that they found difficult. I'd be surprised if Rangers did get back down that road again, but stranger things have happened. I think they could do a lot worse, but
do you think the next appointment will be interim, or do you think it will be a permanent manager?
I was going to add to that. Do you think the fans will accept an interim appointment in this scenario? Feels like a tough sell.
In all honesty, I don't know what they're going to do, Boyd, if I'm being absolutely truthful about it. That's probably one of the big questions you'd have to ask, because it's not like we're getting into the last 2 months of the season, you know, and you say, right, we'll just get an appointment to get us to the summer. You know, we're barely even started the season. Yeah. You know, so to make
2 months in,
to make a temporary appointment, I'm not sure to the end of the season. You know, I don't think there'll be many managers that would probably accept that. You mentioned your Barry Ferguson in this world. I don't think Barry would.
I think he'd off his head if he did, because at the end of the day, you know, he spent it in there.
I don't think he should. You know, if they get back to Barry Ferguson, you just say that he would have questions to say, well, why didn't I get it in the first place? I'm not necessarily sure he would ask those questions, because he would be trying to look forward. But I don't know. I don't think. I'd be surprised if Rangers did that because of the stage we are at the season. But equally, I don't think they know what they're. I don't think they wanted to be in this position. I think that's why they were so resistant to pulling the trigger. I don't think they want to go through that whole process again. I don't think they see it as a quick and easy process. They want to tick so many boxes.
Also on that as well, because it rolled on for so long as well. Because I mean, I think you look at probably the Bruges game, the Champions League humiliation. I know you can lose that game, but to lose 6-0, then there was a couple of performances after that where we thought it's going to be today. Russell Martin's going to lose you. I mean, I don't know if maybe the club have looked at it and said, right, okay, we need to find a replacement. They've maybe been hoping that it's going to change, and if it did, then they don't need to go down the line that they're going to have to go down now. But if they're doing their job properly, they would have to go back a few weeks ago and thought, right, we need to start speaking to people here. We need to start sounding people out. I mean, you could tell. I mean, the fans, the way they were, they had given up. The performances, I said, you could maybe cut them some slack if you've seen, there's signs that this is improving. There was nothing to suggest it was getting better. Nothing. So for me, yes, it's went on a couple of weeks, but I would like to think that the Rangers hierarchy within that couple of weeks have been doing their job. And that would lead to a permanent manager coming up rather than a temporary one, because, for me, as you say, it's going to be a hard sell to the fans, because they've put a lot of money in already this season. They want to see a return on that. They're not getting it. They've been let down again. And I just can't see it being a temporary manager. Wouldn't surprise me, but I just can't see it.
No, I don't think so either. What I would think as well wouldn't surprise me, and I think it would be a smart move for it to happen. I think whoever comes in next should bring someone in with them who knows the club. Someone. I'm not necessarily going down the whole kind of Rangers man thing. I don't necessarily think that's the way it has to be. But I do think having someone on the inside who knows Scottish football, who knows the club.
I think that's a key. You know,
I think
Scottish
that-
football's it's
yeah,
because it has been a snobbery.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need to be dyed in the wool Rangers, man.
Yeah, that's exactly.
But I think there's been a snobbery towards Scottish football.
The club. That's kind of what
I
that's what I'm saying.
think
I don't mean a Rangers man.
Because Scottish football's not easy to play in.
No,
I mean, a lot of
exactly.
people will look at it and say, you know, the standard might not be great. They might not be at the level of, you know, for example, the English Championship in terms of wages, in terms of some of the grounds they have to go to. But I tell you what, it's a very, very difficult league to play in. And we've seen some top players, you know, struggle here.
Yeah.
Top internationals struggle here. Along with managers where you thought, yeah, they're on the way up in their career. They've struggled and had to, you know, had to leave with their tail between their legs. And there's no doubt that Russell Martin has been added to that list, along with, you would imagine, a lot of these players that have been brought in the summer, unless they're able to turn this around quickly under a new manager.
Yeah, we did. We mentioned that at the start, and I think it's absolutely bang on. But difficult times for Rangers, but the Rangers fans got what they wanted. Russell Martin's gone. They'll be sitting with, waiting to hear from the owners. I think that's the key for the next day or two. The Rangers owners, Andrew Cavenagh, the chairman, has to come out, explain where things are at. I think he owes that to the Rangers fans right now, frankly. And it'll be fascinating to see what they do next, but they have to get it right. There's a lot that has to change at Rangers.
That's your parting ticket up, mate.
There's a lot that has to...
Car's not used to being in here for longer than ever. That's you done and dusted. I think that'll do us, friend.
Is that you telling us when we're finished? You're interrupting me.
I've had a message to say my car parking's running out. I can't afford it.
I think we should keep it going.
I can't no longer ahead of sport.
I can't afford that ticket. Parking ticket, mate.
That's why you're throwing your hat in the ring for Rangers. It's all coming out now. Don't forget, we're back here for Go Ballistic next week, and for all the latest news and views for everything across Scottish football, keep across the YouTube channel. Set Piece will be back this Wednesday. Don't forget to tune in for that. We'll see you here next week.